Hello, welcome back. I'm Jennifer Thompson.
And I'm Chad Thompson.
And this is season 7
of The Premise.
Where we get to the story behind the storyteller. We've got some amazing authors lined up for you this season. And guess what? The San Diego Writers Festival is coming up in just a couple months, folks. It's March 28th at the Coronado Public Library. It's free to everyone. And this year's keynote is Jodi Picoult. So make sure and mark your calendars. We'll see you there. And for The Premise, we've just got an amazing lineup of people who are going to talk about storytelling and writing and publishing and just,
And cars.
And cars and pasta. So stay tuned. And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Italian cars. Italian pasta.
Well, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here with Grant Ginder, who
I answered anything. It's fine.
Yeah.
No.
I even wrote it phonetically.
It always works out that way, doesn't it? So Old, So Young is so fantastic. I went to see Taj Mahal last night.
Oh, okay.
Who's 83, and he was great. But one of the first things he said to this big audience is, how did we get so old while we're so young? And I was like, oh, yeah.
Good title.
How did that happen? We're all trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is such a pleasure to be here with you, Grant. This book is fantastic. When I first started reading, it's like you're literally like dumped into the scene. It's almost visceral. And I could just... It was like I was a voyeur, right? It was like I was there. I could feel it. I could smell it. I was so into it. And I couldn't stop reading it. It's so good.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow. Keep going.
Yeah, I will. We've got an hour to fill here.
Oh, buckle up.
Here we go. But really, like, just your ability to like bring people into every scene, and like the way you describe everything that's happening around the person is just fantastic. So
Thank you.
Thank you for following your passion and writing books for us.
For being such a voyeur.
Yeah, right. You must be a voyeur too. And New York City is the best place to voyeur, isn't
Oh
it?
my God. The C train, the subway, absolutely.
Do you want to read something?
I would
for
love
us?
to.
Let's-
I would love to. A
let's
little
dive-
bit of voyeurism. Right?
Yeah, let's dive right in.
I promise it won't be that long, because this is like everyone's least favorite part of these things, is listening to us read it. And authors can really go on reading their own stuff for a while. You don't need too much context to understand what I'm about to read. The book itself, and we'll get into this, but it's divided into 5 different sections, and each section takes place at a specific party over the course of 20 years. So I'm going to read the very beginning of the second section, which takes place at a destination wedding. When I just can't stop writing about weddings, I guess. When the characters are about 30 years old, and it's you're following a character named Mia. She couldn't get a drink to save her life. Cocktail hour ended in 5 minutes, and for the last 10, she had been standing here, sweating through her dress, waving at a bartender in a Guayabera shirt. "Hello, drink please," she said. The bartender smiled at her. He asked the man next to her if he'd like another margarita. Mia pinched the bridge of her nose. "Jesus Christ," she said. Weddings had become a blood sport. A few years ago, when people first started getting married, there was a kind of novelty to them. She would get 1 invitation a summer, maybe 2, and each time she would hold the envelope up in her hand, not quite believing what she was seeing. The dates written out in thick black calligraphy, the inclusion of the bride's middle name. The ceremonies were in churches or at country clubs, and if she was lucky, there would be a gift bag with potato chips and Tylenol waiting for her in a hotel room she was splitting with Adam. But then something changed. It had happened during the last 2 years, though if someone asked her to pinpoint when, Mia would be hard-pressed to give an exact answer. All she knew was that she had taken 2 vacation days and emptied part of her savings account to come and watch Courtney Paulson get married in Cancun. Or no, sorry, Riviera Maya. Because for the last 5 months, if you happened to mention that Courtney was getting married in Cancun within 5 miles of where she happened to be, she would materialize in front of you like some sort of matrimonial wraith and say, well, actually, Mia, it's not Cancun, it's Riviera Maya, and there's a difference. Mia never asked her to explain the difference. Whatever it was, it couldn't change the fact that she had a terrible sunburn, or that yesterday when she was exiting the airport, she'd had to negotiate her way through a horde of drunk college students brandishing souvenir cups from Senor Frogs. Also, last night after the rehearsal dinner, she'd nearly stepped on a scorpion. It was in her hotel room doing God knows what next to her flip-flops, and when she saw it, she screamed so loudly that Adam had run over to check on her from 4 rooms away. But none of that mattered because Courtney and her fiancé, Jeff, with a G, were getting married. Her father had hired the lead guitarist from Saturday Night Live to play at the reception. There were whispers of a big surprise, and when the official party was over, there would be an after party on the other side of the resort with a made-to-order quesadilla station. To get there, they would all ride bikes. These big, slow beach cruisers that the hotel had in storage and that Courtney figured would be, quote, a cute touch. Mia was still working out how all that would happen. There had to be 200 guests at the wedding, and so far she'd seen like 7 bikes. The resort also covered like 1 billion acres. The paths that snaked through it were dark and covered with a layer of fine white sand, and the bike's tires were stripped of their treads. She was imagining Courtney's grandmother pedaling in her moo-moo when the Guayabera bartender finally caught her eye. Dime, he said. Just a gin and tonic, please. No gin and tonics. What do you mean, no gin and tonics? The bartender pointed to a small sign standing on the other side of the bar. It was printed on a piece of stiff pink paper and set in a frame made of seashells. Signature cocktails only. Mia looked at the sign. What's the Jeff and tonic? It's a gin and tonic. Then I guess I'll have the Jeff and tonic. She checked her phone for a text from Sasha. She and Theo weren't there. They were off snorkeling or swimming with dolphins or drinking Mai Tais out of coconuts or getting lava rock massages or doing whatever else 2 people did on a honeymoon to Hawaii. Earlier in the afternoon, Sasha had sent her a picture from the sunrise from the top of a volcano, and Mia had responded with a picture of the dress she was wearing, a green midi that was covered with tiny birds of paradise. The invitation had said that the dress code was formal, hacienda, chic. She understood the words by themselves, but when she saw them strung together, they lost all sense. She was also worried they were, in a way she couldn't quite articulate, a little bit racist. In fact, she was worried that this whole thing was a little bit racist. Last night, everyone had been given a sombrero to wear at the rehearsal dinner. The entertainment was a mariachi band comprising the hotel staff. At one point, music started playing, and Mia turned around to see the woman who had checked her in at the reception desk strapping a guitar around her neck. On the schedule of events she found in her room, there were instructions to fiesta, siesta, repeat. It would be one thing if Courtney's last name was like Gonzalez, but it wasn't. Her mom was British, and her father was named Ronald Paulson. Jeff looked like a guy you'd see on a tourism poster for Norway. The green midi with the tiny birds of paradise was an atrocity. It was also the best thing she could find. I look like Gumby, she had written to Sasha. But she saw now that Sasha had yet to respond. The bartender sloshed gin over 3 cubes of foggy ice, and a drop of sweat worked its way down Mia's spine. Thanks.
You're good at that.
Thank you. Thank you. I've only read it like 3,000 times.
I think you might have read it a couple of times, yeah. But your pacing is so spot on to how it read when I was reading the book.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
It's very fast paced. Like you're in the scene, you're moving along, and you read it just like I heard it in my head.
Well, the secret is I only know how to write scenes. Everyone's like, oh, your scene work is so good. I'm like, because that's the only thing I can do.
It's not true.
These writers, I had a professor once who say that in grad school, E.L. Doctorow, the lady who wrote, I mean, he was incredible, right? And he was like, all books are like ratios. I loved this. He said, books are ratios of montage to scene. And that, you know, you have to know sort of like when to bring the reader into a montage or exposition and when to drop the reader into a scene. And I was like, oh, I don't have a ratio. Mine are just the scenes. So.
Well, I will politely disagree with you. So tell us about this book. Where did this idea come to you?
So the book, it follows 6 friends over the course of 20 years. But as I was saying, the structural twist is that you only see those friends at 5 parties over the course of those 2 decades, kind of catching up with them in these bursts as they kind of fumble through adulthood.
Life.
Exactly. And so, you get them at a crowded apartment party on New Year's Eve in their 20s, to this destination wedding, to a 35th birthday party at a rented house in the Hamptons, to like a suburban backyard barbecue with like way too many kids and not enough wine. And so the parties can track on to these different stages of life. The idea, I think, came from really kind of two different things, two different inspiration sources. One is my own midlife crisis, which I feel like I started experiencing when I was like around 38. I started having these really crazy, this is gonna make me sound like a total psycho, but I started having these moments where I would wake up in the middle of the night and kind of look around my bedroom and like not really understand how I'd gotten there, right? I would like turn to my husband sleeping next to me, and I would look around and I know where I was, but I felt like I was an imposter. Like I couldn't understand how I was married, how I had a mortgage, how I had like super bad plantar fasciitis, how I was like, I was supposed to be 22 forever. Wasn't that the deal? Like I thought I had signed on a dotted line and that was it. But that's not the case, right? And so I think like reckoning with this sort of like this bewildering relentlessness of time and how it comes at us was certainly one inspiration. And then I also wanted to write about friends. And I had spent kind of my last 3 books really writing about families and family dynamics. And I think as you enter kind of these new stages of life, your friendships become much more important, but also much more interesting, right? Because you're changing at different times and entering these phases at different times, which leads to some real friction. And so kind of melding those two things resulted in this.
And it's so fascinating to me how their friendships are sort of weaving closer and farther away from each other, but they're all brought back together through these brilliant parties. And you always answered the questions that I had from the previous party. Like, oh, what happens to such and such, right? And you bring us back. And I was like, keeping track of all of those facts that you had to answer. And you wrote in your acknowledgments, this book almost killed me.
Yeah.
Can you tell us why?
Yeah, I mean, it really did make me like lose my mind. I mean, to the point where like there were like there's like one particular summer when I was working on it where I would like, like at 10:30 at night, like take my dog on a walk and just like sit in the park on a bench staring off into space listening to Maggie Routers, which was, I'm sure people
That's
watching.
part of it.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? But it was tricky. It was I wrote 11 drafts of this book. And between the first draft and the last draft, there were, say the book is 105,000 words. There was 5,000 words, give or take, that were the same. And so it changed really drastically over those 11 drafts. For a lot of, for the reason that you talked about, that keeping track of all of this was really tricky. And also the nature of the book structure, these 5 parties, it sort of as a conceit, you're like, oh, that's easy. But in fact, your inclination is to, between the 5 parties, tell the reader what happened, right? Like catch them up. And this is what happened. But by doing that, you're actually destroying the entire conceit of the book, which is that you're dropping the reader in totally untethered from the previous years.
And there's a certain amount of tension that you get through that because you're not sure, are they still going to be together? Did she get back together with him? Like, what's going to happen? Oh my God.
Yeah, and that tension was really fun to play with, but it took me until about draft 7 to realize that by giving the backstory, I was destroying all of the tension.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. But that's why you rewrite.
Sure, yeah.
You go back and you take it
11 times, right?
How long did it take you to write this book?
I think close to 3 years.
Okay,
I would say.
that's not bad.
No,
that's impressive.
No,
actually.
It's not bad. It's not that bad. Books have taken me longer, but I would say about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I also loved about this book is not only are the characters getting older, but the city is getting older, right? So New York is changing, and the characters are changing, and of course they move to New Jersey.
Yeah.
And there's this
Death.
Total death, right? I remember when my husband, who is over there hiding, and I bought a house and we moved out east.
Oh.
Every time we would get on the freeway and start like going east, we're like, oh my God, our life is over.
Yeah.
My life is like seriously over. How did this happen?
Yeah.
Right? Well, we can afford to buy a house that far. So. And this is what is happening to the characters. They moved to New Jersey, and there's this one scene that to me was so great. So, Toy Story character is going on and on with one of our main characters about, when I lived on the Upper West Side, and this is my favorite restaurant. Of course, those restaurants are gone now.
Yep.
And I'm like, but that's how it is. Like, we're trying to hold on to our youth. We're trying to hold on to the memories of the city we knew, but that's not how life works.
No, and I think that I love that you're talking about this, about how the city changes throughout the book too, because that was certainly something that I wanted to get into, which was, you know, we have these snapshots of wherever we live, right? New York, San Diego, wherever. I mean, the book takes place in New York, but I think that the relationships and the challenges that the characters face are they're not tied to the city in any way, shape, or form. But you have a snapshot of like the place you lived in your 20s, right? And like you were like, it's always going to be like this, and I own this place, and like this place was made for me. And then like in your 30s, like all your favorite places gone. My cousin and I were just talking about who lived in DC, all the bars, and I once lived in DC, like the bars that we would used to go to in DC that are all closed now, right? And like these places are unrecognizable anymore, and it's sad, but it's also now there are other places that are open that for the 20-year-olds who live there now are their places. And I think that there's like this strange desire when you move somewhere to keep it like exactly how it is. But I think that actually betrays like a false understanding of what a city is, which is like it evolves with the people who are living in it.
As do we, right?
Right.
Well, let's talk about the characters.
Okay.
They're all so perfectly developed and so different from each other. And I kept asking myself, do you know these people, or do they literally do you just create these characters in your head?
So I know them in the sense that like I think that like each one of them is like a little neurosis of mine that I like planted, and then they became a character. They're not. I don't base characters on people that I know necessarily. I find that really confining, because then I start being like, well, but you know, so and so wouldn't do that. And so why is the character? And the character is made up. The character can do whatever you want them to do. But when the character is hewn too closely to an individual, like in real life, that becomes tricky, right? But there are like some pastiches of both myself and sort of people I know, or more accurately, like specific challenges or events that have happened in people's lives that I feel like I've kind of like pull from and use. Sure. But no character is really like a kind of a photocopy of someone I know.
I found myself having a favorite character.
Oh.
And then that character would change at the next party.
I mean, that's like how life works, right?
Yeah. And among themselves too, right? Yeah. They're like, you're not my favorite anymore. Yeah. Can we talk about Nina?
Yes, we can definitely talk about Nina. So Nina is a character who it starts off as a very peripheral character who everyone in the book has she's kind of like the annoying friend who's just like always there. You know, like you would go to a party and you're like, oh God, she's going to be like, oh God, I'm stuck talking to Nina. Like, who's going to save me, right? But that character, without trying to give anything away, but Nina eventually gets like a chapter of her own. I won't tell you when or where, but that idea of like being I feel like I've been that person before, where I'm at a dinner party and I'm like, everything I'm saying is wrong, and like no one's laughing at any joke of mine, and everyone's looking at me like, oh, okay, you know. And I think that like that's such an intense feeling, that feeling of social anxiety, that I ended up really wanting to explore. And how, like, what does this person feel like, because we're all aware when we're that person, right? Totally. And so that kind of led me to write this Nina chapter.
Did you always know that you would start the book on the way to a funeral, or did that evolve?
That was actually like one of the very last things that I wrote during the editing process. And it was actually my editor's idea, and he was like, I really think that we should start with like a quick prologue that sets this up. And at first I was resistant to it, but then I eventually came around to it. And honestly, the reason why I came around to it was like, with a book like this, like, you know, there's going to be a funeral, right? You know, there's going to be one. And so like, it's
There's
like
always a wedding and a
there's,
funeral.
yeah, there's always a wedding and a funeral. And so it's like, why not just acknowledge the fact early on that you're like, yeah, I know that you know, and let's just get it out of the way. And now let's move on with the rest of the book. There's going to be a funeral, right?
But then the whole book, you're like, who died, right? And like, you're freaked out a little bit because, as I said, I would fall in love with the characters, and I'm like, oh no, don't let it be this character. Don't let it. Oh, no, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it sets up this like this little bit of a mystery and this tension, which I think is which was fun to play with for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, we talked a little bit about how the city also aged. Mm-hmm. Going back and like researching New York and like Penn Station and oh my God, the description in Penn Station, like I had this visceral reaction where I was like, oh yeah, the first time I remember going down the escalator and then the gush of air hits you. Yeah. Or when you're like looking for your number, it's so stressful.
Yeah. And then when the number goes up, it's like the Hunger Games.
Oh yeah, everyone's just like
everyone is like,
they will kill each other to get there.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was so perfect. It was so good. I was like, I imagine it just sort of like happened. You just happened to be in that place, and your own experiences, of course, brought it.
Yeah, I mean, like certainly, like I have spent time in Penn Station, and that experience of when the number goes up, and then like anyone who's like has lived in New York or been like that is that never leaves you, and so pulling on that kind of stuff was definitely fun, and then also like. What was really fun in terms of crafting the parties, honestly, were like the playlists. Anything that prevents me from writing, I love doing. And so I would be like, to write this section, I need to create a 120 song playlist that I have to be listening to while I'm writing. And so like for each section, that was really fun, right?
Yeah.
Going through like what were like the big songs at the end of 2007, what were in you're going through like Wikipedia or wherever, and you're like, oh my God, I forgot about that.
Did you know all of them? Or
I mean, when I would look at like the top charts, I was like, oh yeah, right. I mean, I think I ended up listening to Umbrella like 145 times while I was writing this, because I was like, this is a goddamn banger. But so that part of crafting the parties was super fun.
I was just talking to Chad on the way here saying that the playlist, like you drop these songs, like it just happens to be playing in the background, and it creates this experience, this atmosphere.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. Okay, so are these playlists on your website?
They
should be.
They aren't, but they absolutely should. No, they're like, at this point, they're like private. And maybe they should remain private. Because I'm sure there's some like embarrassing, I'm sure there's like some Michelle Branch. I'm sure there's some like embarrassing stuff on there. But
that's just how it is.
Life
is messy.
I know, life is messy. You remember crying to the song during a breakup, and you're like, that one's got to go on. But no, they're not on my website.
All right, well, maybe we can pressure him later.
Yeah.
Please give us your playlist. Do you have a favorite character? Is that possible?
I think that my favorite character is the character Mia, whose perspective I read. She grounds kind of each of the sections. She's the kind of our entry into this friend group. I think that honestly, she's my favorite because she's the most like me. She's a little neurotic. She has like severe imposter syndrome. She is always worried that she's kind of falling behind in terms of where the rest of her friend group is. And so I developed a real soft spot for her. Mm-hmm. Her roommate, at least in the first section, in her 20s, she has two roommates. One of whom is Sasha, who is like tall and beautiful and sort of like everything that Mia is not. And then she has their other roommate is Adam, who she compares to a roll of duct tape because he's just like endlessly helpful. And then Sasha's boyfriend is a guy named Theo, and there's some sort of other peripheral characters, but I think Mia, yeah.
Yeah, Mia was definitely my favorite. Oh, but you can't help that because she starts the book, and there's certain things we want for her in her life, and we hurt for all of the characters for sure, but Mia is the grounding for sure.
Yeah.
And Mia is you.
Yeah.
Of course she is.
Yes, I think so. She's a writer, but a journalist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of writing, can you tell us about your writing habits? How do you write every day? Do you have a certain place?
When I'm not creating playlists, I do write when I'm working on something and I'm deeply into something, deeply into a project. I do try to write every day. I set a goal for myself of 1,000 words. I rarely hit it. If I do hit it, like, fabulous. Champagne. And usually what I'll do is I will, wake up in the morning and I'll usually be at kind of my desk at about 8:30 and I'll write until noon and then I'll go get some exercise, come back, and then I usually spend the afternoon editing what I wrote that morning. And unless it's going like extraordinarily well, and then I'll keep going, but that like once in a blue moon is that happening. And I actually attribute I attribute sort of that discipline to speech writing, because speech writing was the sort of job where you had a deadline, and if you didn't meet the deadline, you were probably going to get fired, and so you just sat down and did it.
Right. Earlier you were talking about staring off into space, sitting on the park bench.
Yeah.
As a writer, I think that time really does matter. Staring out the window is part of it.
Yeah, it is. And I usually, those sort of like staring out the window moments for me typically happen. I go on long walks. And usually when I'm walking is when I'm like really kind of thinking and trying to figure something out. And so I try to make it, more active than just sitting usually. But that's
why you have plantar fasciitis.
That's why that is 100% why I have plantar fasciitis. But that, I agree that's a central part of it, right? But it's hard to train your mind to recognize that that's a central part of it, because oftentimes you think, well, if I'm not sitting and I'm not writing and I'm not producing new words, then I'm not doing the work. But you forget.
But you are, yeah.
You forget that is part of the work.
Those characters are being baked
Yes.
all the time, even when you're sleeping. So, do you ever, like when you're walking, do you use a tape recorder or your phone rather? A tape recorder. Oh my God, I just aged myself. But do you ever talk to text to like remember things or?
I don't. What the notes section on my phone is like the most chaotic thing you have ever seen. And I will write like actual prose and paragraphs in the note section of my phone, like on the subway, if like things are going really well.
With your thumb and your forefinger.
Yeah, and I will, I'll be like writing out actual paragraphs, and I will sit down at the computer and like type them into the manuscript if I'm kind of, into it and in the zone, or like locked in, as my NYU students say. But I don't use the voice memos. I just hate the sound of my own voice that much.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I hated my voice when we first
You have a
started doing
podcast.
it. I know.
Yeah.
So when Chad and I first started the podcast, we did a fake podcast so I could get used to my voice.
Oh.
Because I was just like, oh my God, it was so cringy.
Oh.
Now I'm totally used to it.
Yeah.
But I can't talk my thoughts into my phone, and I read it and I'm like, no. That's not at all what's happening up here. Like the act of actually typing or even writing with a pen is so different.
So different.
Than speaking the words.
Yeah, absolutely. And and that's like obviously, I mean, that's why writing exists, right? There's like an important transfer that happens there, an important refinement that happens.
Do you ever write with a pen?
No.
God, no. Yeah.
No, well, I can't read my own writing.
Same.
Yeah. Anyone whose book I sign, I apologize in advance. Like you won't be able to read it. I won't be able to read it. It's fine.
But it'll make it worth a little bit more.
Yeah. Well,
What are you working on now? I mean, assuming that you've already started on it.
Yeah. I was like, well, this thing came out 2 days ago.
Do I have to write another one?
I know. It's like the. Did anyone see Tick, Tick, Boom, the movie? Okay. It was great, right? And there was the moment when Andrew Garfield calls Judith Light Queen. And after he's written a musical, and he's like, well, what do I do now? And she goes, you write another one, and you write another one, and you write another one. and you keep throwing them against the wall and hope against hope that one of them sticks. And I remember when I saw that, I burst into tears. I was like, what have I done? Like, you know, but that's the job, right? You write another one. So I just started working on another novel.
Nice.
Just started.
Is it also based in New York?
No, it's not actually.
And you probably can't tell us anything about it.
No, it's like too half-baked.
I understand.
Yeah.
We'll check back with you in a year.
Check back
For 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Here's 3. Yeah.
Do you have any advice? So our podcast, we have a lot of writers who listen. And do you have any advice for people who are just trying to get their book out there and want to give up as you did writing this?
My agent gave me the best piece of advice I've ever gotten 2 books ago, which was just keep typing.
Amen.
Like, just keep typing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And because that's the only way it's going to get done. And so everyone who asks me for advice, the best piece of advice I can give is just keep typing.
Aw, that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Do you ever write and critique group?
Do I ever write? What's that?
Like, do you have a group that you
I actually
read,
do.
like an early reader group?
I actually do have a writing group that I'm a part of with the novelist Jennifer Close and the memoirist Mary Laura Philpott. And we exchange work and then we meet together on Zoom probably like once every 2 weeks.
Nice.
Occasionally once every 3 weeks. And it's great. I was in conversation with Jennifer actually last night in DC. She's incredible and also just an incredible writer. I would say it's more of like a cheerleading group.
Yeah.
Because we never critique each other's pages. It's more of just like, this is great. Like, you're great. Which you need, right? You actually when you're in just a really crappy first draft, you need someone to be like, just keep typing. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you could, well, first of all, if someone tells you this is crap, you might give up on something that ends up being brilliant.
Yeah. And
Case in point.
This was crap at the beginning.
Well, I just have to say, I love this book.
Thank
I love
you so
the
much.
pacing. I love the characters. You have this brilliant knack for really capturing the messiness of life,
Thank you.
but also the beauty in life. And it's a hopeful book as well.
Thank you.
So thank you for writing it.
I didn't have anything else to do.
Liar. So I think it's time to open up questions from the audience. If anyone has a question. Yeah.
So what party did you have more fun to write?
Oh,
Do
great.
you mind if I repeat the question?
Yeah, sure.
Which party was the most fun to write?
Great question. I think the party, the very first party, which is like the crowded New Year's Eve party on the Lower East Side of New York when the characters are all 25, was the most fun. One, because I spent the most time making the playlist for it. And 2, it was just, you couldn't pay me to go to like a crowded New Year's Eve party on the Lower East Side right now. But it was really fun to think of all the things that we did that we thought were totally acceptable. Like when you walk into the kitchen and there aren't any clean cups, but you're well, they're used cups, and you're like, well, that one's okay, and I'll just use that one, right? And you're
Pre-COVID,
yeah, and you're like, oh my God, I was a monster, and so thinking of all of that kind of stuff and working in those details was really fun.
And playing quarters.
And playing quarters.
And every time you had to drink, I was like, oh.
I'm so bad at quarters.
Are you?
I'm terrible at
I was
quarters.
actually pretty good at quarters. Yeah, we should play some.
It's like there's a magic to it. I can't figure it out.
There is a magic.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yeah.
An old person question, what is quarters?
Oh, what is quarters? I'll let you explain.
So quarters is drinking game where you fill you fill a cup with
a dirty cup you
a
find.
dirty cup with beer or whatever, and you have to bounce a quarter into it, and by hitting the quarter on the table, and then the quarter bounces into the cup, and if you do that, your opponent has to drink. I don't think I've actually ever gotten the quarter in the cup.
But have you actually played quarters?
Oh, a lot.
Okay.
A lot. Yeah.
So this explains a lot about Adam's
Yes.
predicament.
Correct.
I'll ask my grandkids.
Yeah.
You can explain to them. You can show them how to play. No, you can't.
I hope they're still
cooling.
playing quarters.
They use ping pong balls.
Oh yeah, well, yes. Beer pong.
Beer pong.
Yeah.
Right. It's a little easier, I think, than quarters.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so. Well, I think it's a different skill set, right? Yeah.
It sounds easier.
Yes.
Sylvia.
I was just wondering, you said that this book was 11 drafts. Was that a similar process to your other books, or was there something particular to this book that meant it needed so many iterations?
Yeah, no, this one really went through the ringer. This one, I think, for two reasons. One, my other books, there were multiple drafts, but we're talking like 6 or 7 maybe. But this one, the structure itself was really difficult, and to kind of nail it was really difficult. And then at the beginning, the book, I was just trying to do too much. Like the book was about like everything. There was like an environmental justice plot line. There was like a workplace abuse plot line. And you're just like, what are you doing? Like, and so around like the 7th draft, 8th draft, I had to kind of like sit down and say to myself, like, well, what is this book about? Like when you kind of get rid of all the noise and the excess plot points, like what is the book about? And the answer to that question was like friendship and time. And so at that point I had to I was like, all right, anything that isn't about friendship and time, like is out here. And then things started to clarify.
Wow. Did you kill a lot of darlings?
Like there was a graveyard of darlings, that extends for miles from this book. Yeah.
I'm curious, for the 11 drafts, did you do like a page 1 rewrite with each one, or were you able to at some point start to revise what you had on the page?
Yeah, great question. I think I was able to start revising what was on the page by like draft 7 or 8. Yeah.
So to clarify, you started with page 1 every time until you got to draft 7, and then you could jump in and out?
I mean, it's not kind of. I mean, it's not like that. It wasn't like necessarily like that clean of a process. It was more of like, I would be like, well, I can take some of this stuff and some of this stuff, and maybe I can cobble that together into something. But then I would start doing that and be like, I actually need to go back and write this, a new first chapter. And so it would end up being like, well, I'm going to open up a new document and then just start. Yes, that sound, that is what I felt for 3 years, that sound.
But I think once you know it's working when you can go into various places in the book and not have to start back at the beginning.
Correct.
That's when you know it's all starting to come together.
Yes, absolutely. And that moment, I don't want to give the impression that this book was hell to write, but a really pleasurable hell. Because once that moment started,
then you got excited.
Then it was like kind of magical when you're like, oh, this is what this is. And I can see it and starting to feel it. And that was really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
You had your hand raised. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if, now I have 2 questions.
Yeah, perfect.
In that editing process, is part of it just making it shorter because you have too much? And do you work with a professional editor when you, at some point?
Yeah, so I mean, I work with at Simon & Schuster. I have an editor who he's acquired the book and kind of bought it, and he does a lot of the editing, and he is always trying to get me to go shorter. He has like a pretty like set word limit in his mind, and so there's a lot of arguing over that word limit.
Why is that? Is it just because the whole feeling is that readers only want a certain number of pages?
So there's actually 2, from my understanding, there's like two different reasons. It's like one, like readers tend to be like scared of like big books, and particularly unfortunately in this day and age with like attention spans kind of like shrinking, but then also they're actually more expensive to produce. And so if you have like a really big book, that ends up being more expensive to produce, and so there's some concerns there as well.
Yeah.
Do you own the copyright to your book? This has been an issue with Anthropic and
Yeah.
AI people.
It sure has. I'm a proud member of that class action lawsuit. You know, I'm gonna call my agent for that one. I believe how like copyrights the publisher, when they buy the rights to the book, they're buying the rights to essentially publish the book within a given territory, and so North America, in the English language, or you know, all over the world, right? And so there's some ownership there as well with the publisher.
So how do you protect the book from different kind of uses or misuses?
My cousin's a lawyer. She could.
Dear cousin, please tell us all.
What you do is you get yourself a really good agent, and
Yeah.
they figure that out for you. Yeah.
Well, everything is changing so rapidly.
It really is. But
We're figuring it out as we go.
We are figuring it out as we go. But it is a real concern with you know, these massive AI companies that are training their LLMs on the like blood, sweat, and tears of creatives.
Write a short story in the voice of Grant Ginder.
Yeah.
And then it happens. It's very scary.
It's very scary. It's very scary.
Yes. You.
I think it's interesting that you chunked it out the way you did. It feels, and I mean this as a compliment,
Sure.
like a bit of a trend over the last couple of years that I'm reading books from 24, 25 where it is kind of sectioned out like that. Did you know you wanted to do that going into it? Because it feels like most books prior to recent have been like start to finish chapter.
Right. I know
It's an interesting approach.
I wanted to do something interesting with structure, and I thought when I decided I wanted to like write this book about friends, parties play such a mythic role in the narrative of friend groups, right? I get together with my friends and I'm like, oh, like remember who like got drunk at that wedding, and remember what happened at that reunion, and were you there at that birthday, right? And so centering a narrative about friends around parties seemed really interesting to me. I also think that, kind of thinking about time, it's like how we don't experience time passing at like parties, but like at least for me, like I experience time passing in like these bursts, right? Where you don't think about like every day passing, but then suddenly you're at a wedding or your own wedding, and you're like, holy crap, I'm about to get married, right? Or you have these moments where you're like surrounded by your friends and all their kids, and you're like, how do we all have kids now?
Or you're at your friend's kid's wedding.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
and
right.
you're like, you're just like, what? Right? And so the structure for that, in that sense, it seemed to intuitive almost to structure it in that way. But I do agree with you that there does seem to be, I've read a number of books as well, like I think of like Normal People, for example, that follows a similar structure where it has these time jumps and you only get these glimpses.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you have a forever age? Like you'll always be 23? Or?
I mean, yeah, like 23 to 25, right? I don't know. Yeah.
I'm 42.
Always.
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 I don't know why 42. I feel like that's when I finally came into myself.
I love that. That's great.
The weirdest thing is when you're like at a concert and you look around and you're like, who are all these old people?
Oh.
And then you realize, oh, yeah, we're all getting older.
My husband has the best story about this, which is he went to a concert in New York, and he came back and I was like, how was it? And he was like some like indie band or something, and he was like, it was really fun. But I was like, but you don't seem like it was fun. And he was like, well, he went with like a friend of ours, and he said that afterwards, these girls came up to them and they were like, we just think it's so cool that like you guys are still going out to concerts.
Oh my God.
And like that's like so great. And he was like,
good for you, oldies.
And he was like, oh my God. Yeah.
That is not okay.
No, not okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, do you ever have the experience when you like go to a restaurant and you walk around and you look around and you're like, God, this place is full of old people. And
Totally.
Like,
Oh, wait, that's me.
That's
yeah.
me. That's me. Like I'm one of those old people too.
Age is the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm aging, but I look in the mirror and
Yeah.
I actually am, as it turns out.
Yeah, as it turns out. Right.
And I do have a cure for you for your plantar fasciitis. We can
Oh,
talk about
let's
it
talk.
later.
I'm collecting them. I'm
Yeah,
collecting
yeah.
them. Okay.
I cured myself of it too.
Ooh.
Any more questions for our wonderful? Yeah.
I do have one that kind of goes along with talking about age.
Yeah.
And how hard is it to stay disciplined to the perspective of the age that you're writing about when you're writing
it's a great
about
question.
like earlier ages that you've experienced, but now you're looking at them through a more seasoned lens, and then ages maybe you haven't.
Yeah. Well, so thankfully this book stops at like it stops like at my age basically. And so like I did the latter part of your question I didn't have to deal with, but the funniest part was, or kind of that is a really really good question, and the hardest part was taking the 22-year-old seriously, and because and remembering that like you only have the context of your own age, right? So you only have the context of knowing like, well, like this is like, of course this is the most important, like biggest moment of my life, because there's I don't have any way to contextualize it. And so the kind of the petty dramas that they're dealing with at 22, like of course those petty dramas are important. And because I can call them petty dramas, which is in fact probably insulting to that, right? And so like keeping that in mind and taking those characters seriously was the hardest part.
Did you have some young readers read it and, like, am I on point or?
I did. I probably should. Well, no, I didn't. I maybe I should.
But they're young
have.
now, not then. So maybe it wouldn't.
Right.
matter.
Exactly. Right. They're like they're young now. They
Right.
weren't young in
Right.
2007. So. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't read your earlier book,
Oh,
but
it's
I
okay.
understand it was written about Washington, D.C. and living there. Is it more fun or harder or easier, Washington versus New York?
Well, I have like I really like, this is terrible. I really like to make fun of Washington, D.C. and so it's like fun to write about in that sense. But I don't know. They're both like very interesting places to write. They both have like such specific cultures. Like DC in particular, like New York is just sort of like, it's like big and loud and like, you know, this big amalgamation of so many different things. But like DC, I find in particular is just this like very specific culture that I really love to just like drill into.
And you live there, so you can.
And I live there. Yeah. Yeah. So they're both fun to write about though.
So I think we have time for one more question, and then you're going to sign books?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, in the back.
How do you know when it's done?
Oh,
Good question.
God, that is the, that's the tricky part, right? I don't think it ever is the answer. I think.
Who decides?
I think it's.
Say.
I honestly, it's mostly my editor being like, it's got to go into production because this thing is coming out in like 8 months and we got to print it. But I think you get it to the point where you're like, this is good enough. And if I start playing with it more, I'm gonna make it worse. But there's always stuff that you're like, I could have fleshed that out a little bit more. Or I could have, that could have been tighter. So I don't think it's like the work of revision is never done. But you get it to a point where it's like good enough, or that your editor is like, you're done.
Well, you're done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really good questions.
Yeah. Good audience.